Let me respond to an issue that came up yesterday. And in college, I figured that all eyes must be dynamic systems, all refractive states, because we were born with positive refractive states. Medical people call that a defective eye because the refractive state is not exactly zero, and that there's something wrong when the completely normal eye has refractive states that are completely normal. That's the type of language that is my objection. Either one thing or the other thing, but not both. So, in college, I'm analyzing control systems. And it figures if I can only measure refractive state or restricted that way, I could establish whether the completely normal eye was dynamic or not dynamic. That has nothing to do with medicine, nothing to do with defect, because no defect is involved if the eye has a refractive state as measured with a retinoscope. Well, you can only measure the eye with a retinoscope. Primates, all of it. So that's what you get in an exam. Before the retinoscope, they used the objective method, which Petrobus Snellen used plus and minus lenses, and you could actually objectively determine your own refractive state with some moderation of an optometrist who would hold the lenses. So that's what optometry was up to about 1910. And then they decided to go to pure retinoscope. So the result is you never know what your measurement was and no way to find out. So what brought this issue was a nice commentary by a man named Monty, who looked at the poison glasses statement by Rafelson and remarked that he stated 2050, with also the remark that he hardly used the minus lens because he's passing the DMV basically. And that would be fine. Just use it for driving when you absolutely must. Televisions, you don't need them at 2050. Everything else, and then he says, I was fortunate, my vision didn't get worse. And I agree. That's the way to use a minus lens. But the problem is kids who are, let's say, 8 years old, who are at 2050. And so they're given a strong minus lens. What do they do? They're told you got to wear it all the time. So now they're reading at 10 inches with a -1. And the eye is a dynamic system. What's going to happen in pure science is the eye's going to keep on going down. And from everything I know in science, that's been a rate that's faster. I mean, it's hard to come to any other conclusion than that if you're an engineer designing control systems. And that is why Rafelson's remark rang true. You don't really want to use a minus lens if the individual can get himself back to 2020 by his own measurements. Except for very few people who have that intelligence and motivation to actually make the measurements as I'm doing it. It's not that I'm all that great, but after Rafelson, I realized anything prevention cannot be involving an optometrist because you're not going to understand prevention and the need to do it yourself. So this is, in a way, an apology to any optometrist who wants to help. That's not possible unless the individual personally understands what he's doing, why he's doing it, and will actually make the objective measurements himself, objectively. So that is why you can't really expect an optometrist to really help you. It's completely impossible. And rightfully so. Only Rupa Wong, in her discussions with the optometrist, Joey, made the remark that when she sees a kid with a slight minus, she really doesn't want to use a minus lens. But then she realizes, or they were talking about Stellus lenses. She's basically saying, I don't have any other choice, except for her own children. And that is where the idea of poisoned glass comes to mind. So she sees this all the time in her office, every day. Put a minus lens, the kids go down, comes back a year later, he's down to minus, add another minus lens. She has no choice at all. This is true. Every optometrist in this world, they have no choice. Minus lens, no choice, stronger minus lens. So read between the lines here. She doesn't want to say a minus lens is bad for you. She doesn't want to say, keep your nose 20 inches from the page. She doesn't want to say, play tennis while you have 20/20 vision. So that's why she doesn't say anything, and this is why you'll never hear anything about adverse effects of a minus lens on the completely normal eye. But her children, that's different. Your children are full-time. Now, measurement. There are two ways to make a measurement. One is the retinoscope and do it yourself, as I'm doing it objectively. In fact, all the primate data was done with a retinoscope. Typically, and they almost have to use the drug to freeze the eye to get a measurement. It is a poor measurement, but broad population studies, it's the only way. So this is why I know the eye follows the accommodation signal. All retinoscope, all done by changing the refractive state of the eye with a lens, plus and minus, and the eye changes its refractive state in the direction of the lens. That's a control system. It is not a bad camera. But that language never exists in optometry because of the unpleasant consequences that would occur if you actually took science seriously. So back to objective measurements. Now, Rupa uses something called LENSTAR. And LENSTAR, I think, is sonic. There was a run sound through the eye and can get reflexes. And you can measure the eye's length, let's say, at 22 millimeters. The eye is 1 inch long, so a little short, less than an inch, 22 millimeters. And on that philosophy, she says, do that measurement, and the length does not change, stay at 22 millimeters. My kids will keep their refractive state positive, or 20/20, provided they keep their nose off the page at 20 inches. And she's right, that will work. However, the only right way, alternative way, is to measure yourself. That is to use Snellen and test lenses as I am doing it, to go from 20/50 to 20/20. That I'm getting a refractive state change measured by me to go from minus a half, 3/4 to +1. And this is because I still have the habit of reading at 10 inches, but I use a plus lens. This is for prevention, not recovery. But the end result is prevention and recovery. So that was the effect of poison glasses by Rafelson and another doctor. And they try to get people to wear the plus lens, but they would not do it. So don't blame the optometrists. They know how to do it. They know what has to be done. but you absolutely won't do it. And that ends all prevention. Even lens light sight, same thing. An optometrist is not going to help you. It's never going to happen. You'll never be successful with an optometrist. And the ophthalmologist who understands this won't say anything. And she likes the LENSTAR, but there is no real objective method. And that's to measure yourself as I'm doing it. So you don't have to believe anything I say or about all eyes being dynamic control systems, but it would help if you did understand it that way when you're in 2050 and decide self-measured prevention or just to wear a minus lens. Add your own commentary if you wish. And I thank Monte. That's a good remark. That explains why absolutely no optometrist will help you, because the minus lens is easy and you don't want anything else. And you don't think it's going to get worse. And you don't think you have to get your nose off the page at all. Thank you.